message, a text, a call, a FaceTime. We can even live thousands of miles away and still remember what each other looks like. Okay? Like, there is no excuse not to stay in touch and not to reach out and help others and be who God's called us to be. And so today it might just be something like texting someone that's going through a tough time, calling someone, setting up a time. I wanted to give a report on our brother Ronnie. For those of you that don't know Ronnie Norton, man, I'm not going to try to guess how many years he has served this church. It's been a long, long time, and he has done a lot for our church, and he runs our sound, and his family's been a major part of our church for a long, long time. And he shared with me last Sunday, standing right over there by the sound booth, about some health issues. And if you don't know, if you haven't seen on Facebook, he had some major kidney issues and had to go through a procedure. And he was given options. Ronnie was given like 3 options, I believe they were, on how to treat this situation. Certain treatments that will last this long, or you'd have to go every day to this or that. But one of the options, which he was choosing to do, was they could do a 6-hour blood infusion, which they did on Friday. And the thing about that is that would be a one-time thing. And if it worked, he wouldn't need any more treatments, or if everything goes as planned, no more treatments after that. No dialysis or having to go to the hospital every day or anything like that. That he'd be done, but within 24 hours of this blood infusion, he could die. And he could have major, major side effects and major bad things happen because of it. And he was standing right there at the sound booth, man. He told me, he said, Nate, I love the Lord, I'm ready. He said, I want to live. I want to still be used by Him if I can be, but if it's my time, it's my time. So I'm going to go with this option of the blood infusion on Friday. And it's like, whoo, man, you think about that? We're actually going to do a series here in about a month and a half on Jesus' last 30 days on earth, and what if we had 30 days to live and things like that. But imagine facing that situation. So Friday happens. He's going through the blood infusion, and I called him. I'm texting back and forth with Annette, his sister there, and she said, everything's so far so good. Well, I called him yesterday morning. The blood infusion went fine. Now we're just kind of waiting, right? It's like, man, praying like crazy for him. Well, I called him yesterday morning, talking about how easy it is, man. Phone call. There's no excuse not to interact, not to contact. So I called him up, and I was like, hey, man, can I bring you some lunch? You need some company? I'm ready to serve him, try to help him out. I'm like, pray together, get through this time. He goes, well, y'all know Ronnie, right? He goes, actually, I'm feeling great, and I'm on my way to the lake with the family. I was like, wow, okay. That is awesome. So praise report, Ronnie's doing amazing, no side effects whatsoever, doing just fine. And I said this to him, and I thought, wow, how profound is that? I said, wow. I said, Ronnie, I wouldn't put anything past God where you're supposed to be down and out today. Who knows what could happen, and you are on a trip to the lake to celebrate life. Like, isn't that how God works, man? He works in crazy, mysterious ways, and so we're just so glad to share that with him. But in order to reach out, it doesn't take a lot sometimes, and yet sometimes we don't. And Jesus is like, hey, whether it's orphans, widows, lost people, whoever God puts on your heart, it could be someone living under your same roof that He's calling us to serve and help out with and to do. The point is we have to be doing this. For us today, if you want to be different, if you want to stand out, here's some practical things that we got to think about. If you want to set yourself apart from the old established religion, the old ways of doing church, the old ways of doing things that they tell us to, and you really, really want to focus on a relationship with God, how many of us just need to stop and refocus, right? And really focus on this relationship with God? When you see something or someone in need, do something. We talked about last week, the practical way, that lady that just set herself up at Sonic to serve others. God is telling us to do something. And instead of just leaving it at that, and you guys kind of figuring it out, man, God put some practical things in my heart. And what I want to challenge every single one of us to do, to literally do this in our own prayer walk, in our own quiet time, as a church together. Here's what I'm asking us to do. In order to do something, in order to help, in order to serve the widows and my brain just went completely blank. The orphans and the widows, to serve those of our community, to serve others, here's what we all need to do. To pray about how you can help someone, and then pray that God would put in your path and that you, through His wisdom, could help find the solution to the problem. So literally pray, say, God, put someone on my mind, put someone on my heart, put a situation to help, and then let me cross paths with that person or that situation. Like, literally, let me interact with them. And then this is the coolest part to me. Rather than I say, okay, God, you put so-and-so on my heart, we're going to cross paths, I'm going to help them, and I'm going to do this, this, and this. God's like, hey, why don't you pray for my wisdom, and let me show you and teach you and help you on how to help this person. Because where I may think, man, I need to do this or this, God knows best, right? And so he's going to pray that we can put ourselves in a situation to help. And when we seek God's wisdom on helping others, that provides opportunities to do much more than we could ever do on our own. I say this probably 17,000 times a week, and I live by this, and I really mean this when I am talking to someone face-to-face, text, phone, whatever. I always say, hey, if you need something, you let me know, and if I can't do it or figure it out, I will find someone that can. Like God has called us to be a family. Let me tell you, if you come to me and say, Nate, I have car issues, I am not going to try to fix your car. Promise. So if you know me, you're thinking, thank you. But I'm going to send you to out here. And I'm going to know people that help out. Mike knows me really well. That's why he applauded that. If you need a meal, I'm not going to cook for you. Amen. Right? But I know certain people to contact and say, hey, can we orchestrate a meal for so-and-so? Can we do what we got to do? And then there's other things that I can do that I will. And so God just tells us to put ourselves out there. So the first part of that scripture that says to help the widows, to help the orphans, God is calling us to serve. To be about it, to be about His faith, to have a productive faith walk, a productive summer, a productive time in your life. You've got to be serving others. You've got to be putting others ahead of yourself. Satan would love to take a downtime, to take boredom, to take stress or bad things that are happening in your life and allow you to not be doing anything to further the kingdom, to take that time and make it idle. The next part of it is, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. What does that mean? What does it mean to keep yourself from being polluted by the world? And I'm going to read some phrases and then a word of each phrase for each phrase that God put on my heart on how to apply it to our lives. So what does that mean to keep ourselves from being polluted by the world? It means not being lured away by our own desires and temptations. Whew, how quickly can we stray from what God wants us to do when we try to go get into the things of this world and our own temptations and our own desires. The word that God put on my heart for that phrase is distracted. Satan can use distracted people in mighty, mighty ways, man. When we find ourselves more focused and distracted and more focused on the things of this world and the things that we want to do ourselves rather than who God calls us to be, then that's keeping us from moving forward. That is keeping us from focusing on where we need to. It also means not relying on our own strength to overcome. Whew, this one's hard. And the word that God put on my heart for that is selfish. When we try to do things our own way, when we try to rely on our own strength, our own thoughts, our own things to get through something, that is so selfish because we're basically saying, God, I got this. Could you just kind of take a back seat for a minute? God, you've given me this whatever as an outlet. God, the only way I can cope with my situation is to do this. You gave me this to cope with this situation. So could you just sit back while I cope? And God's like, wow, you're relying more on that situation. You're relying more on that thing than you are to me. Something's happened. Something's gotten out of whack here. And God's like, don't be selfish, man. Rely on me. Don't rely on your strength to get through these things. It means not being blown by the wind and going the way of the world. Whew, this word that God gave me about that phrase is inconsistent. Do you know how much damage can be done that is so counterproductive and so against the kingdom when Christ's followers, when His church is inconsistent? Yes, you're going to have ups and downs. Yes, you're going to have good moods and bad moods. Yes, you're going to get good news and bad news. But when it comes to your faith, when it comes to serving God with everything you have, that part has to stay consistent. That part can't be up when things are up and down when things are down. Your faith, your strength that comes from Christ cannot be inconsistent. The best example of this on a non-spiritual level is NFL quarterbacks, man. And I hear them in interviews talk about this all the time. They say you can't let the highs get too high and the lows too low. And I always struggle with that because I'm thinking, what's wrong if you score a touchdown, let me get too high? And then I heard a quarterback, a famous one, say, because when you let that high get so high, when that low comes, it is that much more of a fall. It is that much worse. So if you let the highs get too high or the lows get too low, you're in a bad place as a quarterback. But if you stay consistent, man, you stay even keel, right in the middle, nice and easy, boom, 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 the highs come, you stay right there grounded. The lows come, you stay right there grounded. That's how you're able to continue to be successful and to continue to be the quarterback in that case that you're supposed to be. And when it comes to our faith walk, the same applies, man. We've got to be consistent. We've got to stay in His Word. Boy, inconsistency in your quiet time, inconsistency in your church attendance, inconsistency in your giving, inconsistency in your serving. I guarantee you, if those things are inconsistent, you're going to find yourself like, whew, why am I in such a bad place? And we start to look at those things. Here's what else it looks like to not be polluted by the world. And one of these practical things that we can apply is not hurting people with our words. Just as easy as it is to reach out to others, as I talked about, through social media, through text, through phone, through FaceTime, whatever, it's also that easy to do a lot of damage with our words. And the word that God put on my heart is mean. Don't be mean. Man, I struggle with being mean a lot sometimes whenever I'm like in a bad mood or this or that. And who are we the meanest to? The ones we love, man. That breaks my heart, man. Why do I talk way meaner? Is that a word? Who cares? Why do I talk way meaner to Hope, my wife, than I would to the person in line at Walmart? Like, I'm extra nice to a stranger. I'm extra polite. If they step on my foot, oh, it's okay. If Grace runs in and steps on me, what are you doing? And I kick her. That's not good. No, I'm just kidding. But why are we... No, like, man, I got TSS on speed dial, Pastor. No, I would never do that. But why are we more mean to those that the closer ones to love? God says, don't hurt people with your words. Man, act in kindness, act in love. Here's the last thing, what it means to not be polluted by the world. And this one's big, man. Not fooling ourselves by trying to rationalize, and I have the word justify, our bad behavior or lack of action. Man, you want to be polluted by the world, you start justifying your sin. You start rationalizing, yeah, God, but in your word where you said, to give my tithes, my offerings, my time, my energy, you didn't understand how little of that I have right now. So you know that once I get that raise at work or once I get more time, then I'll start serving and giving the way you call me. And God's like, I didn't ask you to justify or rationalize. I just asked you to be obedient. And I asked you to serve. And I asked you to be my disciple. And the word that God gave me that, if we're rationalizing our sin, if we're rationalizing poor choices or lack of action, if we're justifying why we're not moving forward and why we're not stepping out and putting feet to our faith and putting action to our words, then the word God gave me for that is lost, man. We are lost. We are so blind and lost to what God calls us to do, man, that Satan, again, would love to take that time of being lost and love to take that time of justification to hurt the kingdom, to not be the church and the people that God's called us to be. I want to share with you guys real quick 2 moments in my life that I will never, ever, ever forget. And these 2 moments literally wrap up this entire sermon perfectly for this situation, because both of these moments in my life could have been exactly opposite of what I'm preaching about today, the opposite of what I'm talking about, in the sense that they could have been used to be completely idle, to be completely unproductive, to not be about being in the hands and feet of Jesus at all, and to go the wrong way. And fortunately, in my life, these 2 situations actually became the most powerful, amazing moments for me that have literally changed my life to this day. And the first one was when in high school, I tore my ACL and meniscus. Everybody say, oh. I'm that Southern around here. I'd be in the NBA if I didn't hurt my knee. Okay, I really would have. No, but I was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty good, not great. But basketball and women, man, whew, that was my life. I had a lot of both, okay? I'm just kidding. I thought I did. But I love me girls, and I love basketball. And as a 13, 14, 15-year-old young man, that I was hot stuff and big stuff, and boom, I tore my ACL and meniscus playing football and going back to basketball too early. And I was literally, those things, not the girl part, but that was taken away. And I learned 2 huge lessons while I went through that surgery and while I couldn't play basketball anymore. I learned 2 major things. Number 1, I was told this by my girlfriend at the time: never call someone before you slept off your pain meds. To this day, I don't know what was said, but I know what she said to me once I cleared my head. And that was, do not ever call me before you sleep off your pain medicine again. Lesson 1. Lesson 2 was God showed me priorities. He said, when are you going to, even as a high school student, when are you going to make me your priority and not sports and girls and popular and all this stupid stuff, when are you going to make me the priority? And that was at 15 years old. That's when I dedicated my life to God. Right after that, at a conference, that's when I felt my calling to ministry. Right after that happened. And it's crazy that that time could have been easily destructive. I could have easily said, God, how could you tear my... God didn't tear my ACL. Everybody said, well, that happened for a reason. No, God didn't do that. He didn't make it happen. But He allowed me to learn through it. And He allowed me to take that time and make it productive. One of the most unproductive moments in my life where I didn't feel like I could do anything that meant anything turned into the most productive, awesome decision I ever made, and that was to make Jesus the priority and not basketball. The other one, they're both injury related, but the other one, and to me, injury stories are so good because, again, God didn't do it, it just happened, right? About 8 years ago, man, some of you heard this, I cut my foot open really bad on a golf cart. How do you cut your foot open on a golf cart? I don't know. Number one, yes, I was sober. Everyone's like, were you drinking? Like, I was completely sober, never drank in my life, and I wrecked this huge souped-up golf cart. I had shoes on and everything, cut my foot open to the bone, man. Like, it was really bad. Still got the road rash and all that. And what that accident led to was 4 months of laying on the couch. Some of you are thinking, man, I'd love to lay on the couch right now. But for in any of us, we want to be moving. We want to be productive. That time, and it's really hard for me to talk about, it's really hard to think about, because God has shown me afterwards what could have happened during those 4 months. And when I think about that, I think, wow, that would have been bad. I was a youth pastor at the time. I was in Hickory, North Carolina, serving at a church there. They supported it, man. We moved my office into my living room. I was able to kind of still do some things. But, man, I wasn't able to get out and run around. I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. And my brother Andy, man, if you've never met him, he's an awesome man. He lives in Connecticut with his wife and baby. And he knew all the way from wherever he was at the time. He knew that I was struggling, man. And he sent me a text message or a phone call. We didn't have a text message back then. But he sent me a phone call one day, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, Nate, I know right now you're having 4 surgeries in 4 months. You can't get up, you can't go, you can't run around, you can't do what you're called to do. He said, I know you're discouraged, and I know you're down. But God told me to tell you to make this the most productive months of your life. Now, you're telling somebody that runs 1,000,000 miles an hour to make laying on the couch productive. How do you do that? And I literally said, they said, don't interrupt me, let me finish. Okay. He said, you have got to take this time to focus on what you can focus on, to do what you can do. You're looking at everything you can't do. And he's like, you need to have more quiet time with God than you've ever had in this moment. You need to read more in the Word. You need to read more about Christ. You need to pray more while you're down on this couch and can't be out playing ball, can't be out doing, picking kids up, doing all this stuff. You have got to take this time to focus on Christ. And it literally turned into, God, how could I get in this wreck? How could this happen to me? Everything's bad. Everything sucks. To, wait a second, Lord, how can you turn this incident into a beautiful thing? How can I focus on you more? And in those 4 months of being on the couch, I grew closer to God than I ever have in my entire life. And if Andy wouldn't have reached out to me, and if I wouldn't have changed my perspective and how I was looking at the situation, that would have never, ever, ever happened. Kelly, you guys come on up. And so I want to just encourage us as a church, as we talk about how to be about it, as we talk about how James says to serve others and to not fall into the ways of this world. In order to be about it, man, we have got to be willing to serve and look at things in life as, God, what can you do in this crappy situation, as opposed to, how could you give me this crappy situation? God, who are you calling me to serve, as opposed to, Lord, I want to do this or this for myself. And then when it comes to being polluted by the world, man, I want to encourage us, don't give in to the ways of sin. Don't give in to the ways of temptation. If you have, man, God's grace is sufficient. We've all been there. We've all done that. Ever since those 2 moments in my life, especially the last one, the golf cart accident, every time it rains and just bad stuff happens and bad stuff happens and bad stuff happens, my life has been changed because I look at it now as, okay, Lord, yeah, this really, really stinks and I don't like the situation, but how can I draw closer to you in this situation? How can I be a better man, even though I feel like less of a man? How can I turn to you whenever I just want to run away? And God will begin to do those things and show us those things. And then as a church, when we commit to praying about these things and doing what He's called us to do, man, it is unstoppable. It is going to be unbelievable what we can do. So we're going to sing this song about He reigns, and I believe this song brought my heart. And we also sang earlier about changing the world. And if you are willing to put your left foot forward, your right foot forward, and just keep breathing and just keep moving forward, then I really believe we can make a major change. So you guys go ahead and stand up, begin to pray, and sing. I've struck up an awesome friendship with a young man named Jacob from North Greenville University. And his father passed away a couple years ago and had started a ministry called Just Say Jesus Ministries. And what they would do for no charge, no cost, anything like that, is they would just travel to different churches, especially churches that didn't have enough people to serve for their vacation Bible school. And they would do their opening and closing program. The part before VBS starts, everybody gathered, and the part afterwards, they take care of all the audiovisual stuff, all the music. Praise the Lord, because I'm not musical. When I mentioned to Becky, I was like, hey, would you want to take a break from doing the motions and songs? She said, yes, I would. So we have a chance for a ministry to come in, and this young man, this is the first summer after his dad passed, that he wanted to continue this ministry. And him and his newlywed wife, they just got married like a month ago, they have literally taken their summer. He has an internship to get through school, he works full time, and they take time off to travel around to 3 or 4 different churches this summer just to do the VBS program for them for the opening and closing. And so we're going to take up a love offering. Any black basket that's left, that will be for the love offering. Your tithes and offerings have already been collected. So anything you can give to help out this ministry. They don't ask for a dime. They didn't ask me to do this. We just, as a leadership, wanted to be able to bless them with some form of payment for them giving out their time this week to do this. And if they do a terrible job, I'll get it back from them, okay? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. If y'all take me serious, you're going to think I'm a jerk. But we want to take up this opportunity. So I'm going to just say a special prayer. If you guys want to go ahead and grab those baskets, repass those around. I'm going to say a prayer for Just Say Yes Ministries, and then you guys are dismissed. Father God, I specifically lift up Jacob and his ministry to you right now, God. And the more I interact with him, the more that I see what his ministry is doing, God. It just means so much to me to see a young college student being willing to serve. God, being willing to do exactly what we talked about today, and just to go out and be your hands and feet and reach these young people for you when they could be doing anything else in the whole wide world. And he's choosing to take his time and energy and his family's focus to go out and serve churches, Lord. I thank you for all of our volunteers here that are going to be putting on an incredible week with the crafts and the games and snacks and the Bible story and everything that we will be a part of, God. And I just pray that you lift up this coming VBS. I pray that you lift up this Just Say Jesus Ministries and allow us to continue to be your hands and feet. And everybody said, amen. You guys are dismissed. Peace out. We'll see you next week.